What it do, family and friends? Welcome back to the Church of Black Power. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button along with the notification bell so you can be notified whenever videos like this drop. Please make sure you're hitting that like and share button so we can beat up the algorithm. Make sure we get this message out to the ears that need to hear. And if you have not done so yet, please make sure you hit that link in the description. Go to change.org and put your signature on the petition for reparations. And with that being said, family, there's a few things I want to get to today. First of which being the Jill Stein and Angela Cry situation. And if you didn't think Angela Cry was a Democratic shield, you just ain't been paying attention. But in this situation, Angela put on her cape and became super shield for her Democratic paymasters. And I say that because this interview wasn't really set up like an interview. I forget that Angela Cry is actually a lawyer. And this interview was more set up like an interrogation. And you really didn't see much intervention from, the other, Charlemagne like that. He came in like every blue moon. He came in with a point or whatever, or question. But Envy or whatever, he didn't really jump in or tune in too much. And the other chick that was there, she was basically there to play backup and be the yeah girl or the amener to Angela Cry's talking points, which were all like basic talking points that came out like 2016 when Hillary Clinton was running and things like that, many of which has been debunked. And you would think that a lawyer would go and actually, research those talking points that she's actually using that were actually debunked. But that's neither here nor there. But I want to get to this, what I call an interrogation. There's several parts in this interrogation that I feel would benefit us to go through, because it seems like every time you have somebody who's not a Democrat or someone who's independent or whatever the situation may be, it becomes a situation where someone, no matter who it is, whether it's Rachel or whether it's Angela, situations become about emotional politics. It's not really about actually having the conversation about what that party would and can do for the black community as it should be. No. What it actually becomes is an emotional crash out fest, basically. And none of this should be going on when you call yourself a journalist. And they don't act like that with Kamala or any other Democrat that they speak to. They speak to them with kid gloves on. But when it comes to actually speaking to a different party member or a different, maybe a non even affiliated with a party, just an independent candidate, people are more emotional. People are more critical. That same energy that they would never give to the Democratic Party. But we gonna jump into this, and I'll be right back.
Warning. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use.
All right, now we got that out the way. Let's jump into this first situation here, because I want to show you all throughout this whole interview, Angela Cry, you can tell that her job was to basically be the shield for the Democratic Party. And you could tell through her body movement and everything. And that's what I want to get a look at first in this situation where Jill is answering a question. I want you guys to pay close attention to Angela's face, her body movement, and how she's just reacting.
And then they actually did hijack $300,000 in our public funding, which we critically needed for the timing of ballot access. And that's why, for example, we missed Oklahoma, because we didn't have the cash on hand to be able to pay the fee, which is, you know, what Oklahoma requires. Yep. So yeah, they are pulling out all the stops, and then they have, I'm sure AOC was being an attack dog there, because she was put up to some ridiculous story which really did not hold water, and I think was really quite embarrassing to her at the end of the day. Before her, it was Jamie Harrison, the head of the DNC.
Did y'all see that squint on her face?
Missed Oklahoma because we didn't have the cash on hand to be able to pay the fee, which is, you know, what Oklahoma requires. Yep. So yeah, they are pulling out all the stops, and then they have, I'm sure AOC was being an attack dog there, because she was put up to some ridiculous story which really did not hold water, and I think was really quite embarrassing to her at the end of the day. Before her, it was Jamie Harrison, the head.
Look at that squint on her face. I don't think that she likes the fact that Jill brought up AOC, because that squint right there, if looks can kill, if I can read mine, she'd probably be, I would guess that she's probably thinking, how can I get this woman's head to explode? Just by looking at her. But let's continue.
Head of the DNC, who was trying to smear me about being a Russian agent. Well, that was long put to rest by the Senate Intelligence Committee, which looked into that smear campaign for 3 years. Actually, I had a detailed investigation by the Senate Intelligence Committee.
Where that came from, Dr. Stein, given the fact that you were sitting at the head table with Vladimir Putin next to Michael Flynn, who was literally
not next to Michael Flynn. Not next to.
At the same table,
he was
the
at
head
the table
with national security.
Now notice, she meaning being Jill, I'm referring to, when she starts talking about how there was an investigation for 3 years, instead of allowing her to finish and then asking her question, she cut her off. That's combative. That's not how you interview someone. You get what I'm saying? So off vert, and this is a while into the interview. This is about 46 minutes into the interview. It's about an hour interview or whatever. So this is where she's actually starting to gear up on the talking points of the DNC and former Hillary Clinton, who was saying the same stuff. Let's continue.
Security advisor Michael Flynn, who was found to have interfered with Russia in the 2016 election. And just months after you announced your election.
Do you know what my message was?
What I understand from what you said is that you weren't able to give that message because there was no one to translate that message.
But I was a major speaker at the conference. What you saw was a photo from the dinner afterwards.
Were you at the head table with Vladimir Putin, Dr.
Vladimir Putin came in and sat down for 10 minutes without translators.
At the head table with you?
Yeah, well, not with me. On the other side, the only person I could actually talk to, because there was so much noise and music and entertainment going on, the only person I could get a word in edgewise to was the former foreign minister for Germany, Willy Wimmer, who was sitting on my right.
And
on my left.
Of your speech too.
And my speech, made 3 points. My speech made 3 points. One is that we needed an immediate peace offensive in the Middle East, and that Vladimir Putin needed to stop bombing Syria, which he had just begun doing. I told him that he was following in the footsteps of U.S. foreign policy, which was a disaster by way of trying to bomb our way to peace in the Middle East. The second point was that we need a global Green New Deal because we have a crisis that impacts all of us. Yep. We need to move our money from the military to actually confronting our true, real threat to our survival, the climate. And the third thing being we need to get rid of the nuclear weapons. That, too, is a threat to our survival. And right now, that is a law. That is a law of the land. The Nuclear Weapons Ban Treaty is now required by the United Nations. The vast majority of the world nations have signed on, but not the nuclear weapons holding nations, not Israel, not Russia, not the U.S., not China. So I was there to promote those three things, not just to Russia, but to the world press, which was gathered there.
Russian TV dinner, which American intelligence officials say is the Kremlin mouthpiece. And I'm curious, if you were there, you were sitting in this picture that I see.
So I was there to speak to global media, including the Canadian Broadcasting System, the BBC, China, India, world media, to know that there is another constituency within the U.S. We are not all about being empire, about conducting endless war against black and brown people around the world and ginning up nuclear weapons. And we have, by the way, led the charge in dismantling the nuclear treaties, so that right now we are risking nuclear war on three fronts. Did you know that one nuclear-armed submarine...
Did you see that Angela can't help herself? She's literally in attack mode, and that's why I let it play. She's literally in attack mode, trying to link her to Putin, to Russia, to basically the same thing that they were trying to link us to when speaking about reparations. And it's actually brought up how reparations and being pro-black and things like that was actually put as a crimson talking point when it actually wasn't. It was black Americans speaking up for our needs and our interest. However, they're telling people that we're Russian bots and things like that. And they just started doing that again. But let's continue.
Alone contained the equivalent of 5,000 Hiroshima bombs. Nuclear confrontation is a threat.
Russian TV dinner, which American intelligence officials say is the Kremlin mouthpiece. And I'm curious, if you were there, you were sitting in this picture that I see.
So I was there to speak to global media, including the Canadian Broadcasting System, the BBC, China, India, world media, to know that there is another constituency within the U.S. We are not all about being empire, about conducting endless war against black and brown people around the world and ginning up nuclear weapons. And we have, by the way, led the charge in dismantling the nuclear treaties, so that right now we are risking nuclear war on three fronts. Did you know that one nuclear-armed submarine alone contained the equivalent of 5,000?
You see that hand? Go behind that hair. She is stroking just her body language is showing she can't contain herself. She cannot contain herself. But this is who's supposed to be doing journalism nowadays. Anyway, let's continue.
Hiroshima bombs. Nuclear confrontation is a threat to us all because of the nuclear winter thing. And there's so much which is not being addressed. There's so much which the American people deserve to know, including how much this is costing us.
Can I read you something, Dr.
Sure.
I'm just asking.
Now, this is where, excuse me, you're going to get all that information that basically we've been saying about reparations and basically our rights as Americans and things like that, civil rights, all that. She's about to confirm that all that is even looked at as Russian disinformation, as crimson talking points.
great.
It says engaging with foreign assets is a pattern for Dr. Jill Stein. Previously, the Senate Intelligence Committee investigated links between Stein's 2016 campaign and Russia's efforts to interfere in the election, while an indictment brought by Special Counsel Robert Mueller found that the Kremlin's Internet Research Agency had used social media to promote her candidacy.
So that has
Posted
been
more than 1,000 times.
Oh,
Now, as you can see, Angela's sitting there nodding her head like it's some sort of gotcha moment. By the time Charlemagne's done reading what he was reading, she's not there trying to get to the truth. She's not there trying to see what this candidate is willing to do for Black Americans or anything like that. All she's there to do is put this woman on trial and find her guilty. This is an interrogation. And even though these things have been debunked and disproven, she's still running around acting as if this is what it is. So that shows there's some sort of ulterior motive for her being there. I mean, why is she even on the show? She's not a part of the show at all. So you couldn't have a Green Party candidate without some sort of Democratic shield on there that was outside of the host because y'all tired of Charlemagne getting called out for being the shield? Because he's tired of getting called out for being the shield? I just find that interesting. I find it very, very interesting.
His efforts to interfere in the election, while an indictment brought by Special Counsel Robert Mueller found that the Kremlin's Internet Research Agency had used social media to promote her candidacy.
so that has
Posted
been
more than 1,000 times.
Oh, yeah. I mean, so the Senate Intelligence Committee, they don't mention what the finding of the Senate Intelligence Committee was, which was that there was absolutely no fault on my part whatsoever. The question that was raised there was, did Russian social media have an impact? And was I, a beneficiary of that? And the Senate...
But they said you repeatedly parroted Kremlin views and posted a
well,
campaign
you know
video
what they
from
consider
Moscow's
a
Red
Kremlin
Square.
view? They consider reparations a Kremlin view.
Oh.
They consider
They do.
the civil rights movement actually a Kremlin view. They consider racial disparities a Kremlin view.
Those are Kremlin
So
talking
these
points,
are
according to
these are these are Department of Defense talking points, and these are unfortunately the DNC talking points as well. Which
And we know that to be true, family, because even with Martin Luther King, they was calling him what? A communist. Right? They was calling King a communist. So we know that this goes back, and we know that this is a tactic that they implemented. So I don't even know what the confusion is. But let's continue.
repeatedly tries to smear me as a Russian agent,
They
even
called
though
you a
it has
useful
been
idiot.
yes, and this has
Ain't
been
no
very
idiots in this room, man.
specifically
Yeah, I
Let's
agree.
just be blunt about that.
found lacking. And the report, get this, the report that was initially used to supposedly show that Russians had a social media campaign supporting me, that was written by a cybersecurity firm called the New Knowledge Corporation. New Knowledge had to disband shortly after publishing that because they were exposed for conducting an interference campaign themselves in the 2017 Senate election in Alabama. And how did they do that? They pretended to be a Russian influence campaign on social media. So they did exactly what they have accused the Russians of doing. They actually did, and put it under the false guise of being a Russian interference campaign. So this is
And what do they be doing with us? Claiming that we're putting out misinformation, disinformation when they're doing the very same thing. They're claiming that we're bots when they got the very same bots that they're claiming that we are, they got working for them. So I don't think that she's lying at all, to be honest with you. Now, whether I agree with her policies or not, that's a whole different situation. But in this interview, I don't believe that she's lying at all. Because I know for a fact, and we all know for a fact, that's what they've been doing. But let's continue.
It's a psyop and a hit job, bro. It's a psyop and a hit job. Totally.
With Vladimir Putin or anybody in the Kremlin, anybody within his team? Have you ever had any
I
conversations
have tried
with them?
to and have never been able to. But that has been my goal, to actually advance each of these three absolutely critical issues. And in the words of John F. Kennedy, we must not negotiate out of fear, but we must not fear to negotiate. Look at the Ukraine war, for example, which is an absolute disaster. It is a war being fought to the last Ukrainian. No one is paying a steeper price in blood than the people of Ukraine right now. This is an absolutely criminal and tragic war, but it was completely avoidable. Even after it began, there were negotiations taking place under the auspices of Turkey, which brought together the various parties, and you had a peace agreement between Russia and between Ukraine. And that peace treaty was disrupted by the U.S. and by the U.K., which came in and said, no, you may not make peace here. The U.S. has been invested in this, unfortunately, as part of our plan for the expansion of U.S. influence following the collapse of the Soviet Union. It's a longer story. We don't need to go into it. But this is an absolutely avoidable conflict. You have to be very skeptical of the talking points that we're hearing from the Department of Defense.
What does the Green Party have planned for America?
Well, so
I hear a lot of geopolitical issues.
It took all that for someone to finally ask what her and her party is going to do for the American people. They ain't even asked about black people. But it took all that to get to, so what is the Green Party going to do for the American people? And Charlemagne was the one who asked it. But let's continue.
And so I'd like to bridge between those by going back to something that you asked about, like Team Red, right? You know, how we appeal. So just to be clear, right, that part of the appeal to Team Red is to actually focus on America. So one of the things that is a marked difference between the way that the corporate interests that control the Democrats and the corporate interests that control the Republicans are configured is that on the so-called right end of the spectrum, there are a lot more people that are interested in disengagement from forever wars and want to focus instead on domestic policy. So I think that is one place where we can absolutely make an appeal. And, you know, the appeal that Jill, you know, sort of framed, and I'll be blunt about this, like my grandfather, Rudolph Ware Sr., he never, so yeah, I go by Butch, but I'm actually Rudolph Ware III. You know, my grandfather from Georgia, father grew up in D.C. My son is also Rudolph, you know, so we got four of them. But Rudolph Sr. never would have voted for Democrats because he didn't like that culture of dependency, going with your hand out. He was somebody that did things for himself. So the idea of saying we can cut your personal income taxes, we can cut your small business taxes because we're going to make billionaires pay their fair share, and we will stop taking money out of your pocket and handing it to Raytheon by laundering it through genocides. Right, that we feel that is something that will appeal to people, you know, not just on the right, but like people that are not thinking about voting at all, that this is actually a really, really crucial point. And it is one place where Team Blue is absolutely speeding us towards World War III more rapidly than Team Red is, okay? Team Red.
Uh-oh. I don't think he should have said that at all. I can just feel the boiling point of Angela Cry just steaming out of her ears. He said the Democrats are pushing us closer and faster to World War III than the Republicans are. I know that grinds her gears.
it might be speeding us towards a kind of societal collapse, right? And
fascism.
Exactly.
I don't want that.
Right. No. But the thing is that the truth of the matter is that imperialism and fascism are two sides of the same coin. One is the side that faces outwards, and the other is the side that faces inward. And I made a social media post before I got brought onto the team that said it this way: is that whether you vote Team Red or Team Blue, militarized fascism wins. Because the AIPAC and the weapons manufacturers are patrons of both networks. And just to return to that point, right? I've been on campuses. I organized a Palestinian Liberation Concert on October 21st. I organized a Black and Palestinian Solidarity panel at my local mosque on October 11th, 4 days after. Wow. Like, your brother was not backing down. And the Zionists came for my job within the month, okay? And, a Negro's still standing. So, but the point of all that is just to say that when we launched this campaign to try to actually bring people into this conversation, you see that this is actually where the American people stand. The American people do not want this forever war, and they do not want militarized fascists coming to their campuses to crack kids' heads open. I had to stand out in front of the encampment, and that's Democratic governor in California. That's Democrat, mayors in places like New York City. It's Democrats that are running cop cities. So the thing is, bro, fascism is already here. It's just that one of it is like fascism, and the other is fascism. But the truth is that the purple fascists, the purple imperialists, Team Red and Team Blue, are run by the same funders, and who funds you runs you. So there's a discourse.
I mean, the brother ain't telling no lies on that. The brother dropping facts. I mean, I'm pretty sure she's not going to like those facts. Especially the fact that he said these are Democratic-led states and cities that have some of the worst conditions. Let's continue.
About putting off fascism, but the reality is that fascism was already here because we already can't speak freely. We already have people, university presidents, losing their job under democratic regimes. We already have kids that are lining up for peaceful protests, having their heads knocked open, or you have the cops standing to the side at UCLA so the thugs can knock kids' heads open. So I'm sorry, the fear mongering ain't gonna work on me.
The only thing that I would say to you is I think it's very dangerous rhetoric to say there are two sides of the same coin. I do think it's important for us to
dangerous
understand.
To the Democrats, yes.
I think it's dangerous to all of us, actually. I don't have the privilege.
We disagree.
I understand. We do on a lot, but we also agree on a lot. But
now this is where she's about to get antsy. She's about to get very antsy and emotional. Because that right there pissed her off that he even compared the two, the Democratic Party with the Republican Party, but he backed it up with facts. Then she want to come back talk about, only thing I would want to do is, and she came with the squint first. First she squinted, then she had to come back. Only thing that I want to say is that I don't have the luxury to. Well, we don't have the luxury to be blind to what's actually happening in front of us. Angela, we don't have the luxury to allow you to shield for a group of people who continue to deny us any type of benefits, especially when we're owed those benefits. But go ahead, let's hear her get off.
But here's one thing I think we can agree on. Either you win or lose this election. There's really no in between. Dr. Stein, in 2002, you ran for governor of Massachusetts and you lost. In 2004, you ran for state representative in Massachusetts and you lost. In 2006, you ran for secretary of the Commonwealth. You also lost. In 2010, you ran for governor again, this time against the first black governor in Massachusetts, Deval Patrick. You lost. In 2012, you ran against this country's first black president and you got just less than 0.5% of total votes cast. In 2016, you ran against Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, losing significantly with 1.4 million votes cast for you, but 0 electoral college votes, which I agree with y'all needs to be abolished. But 136 million people voted. And you lost that election as well. So I want to know what the pathway to victory is for you in 2024. It can't just
now,
be.
I'd like to provide a different
frame.
Shut your mouth.
Now, family, tell me, did that line of questioning remind you of anybody? Anyone at all? Because it reminded me of when this happened.
A lot of people did not think it was appropriate for you to be here today. You have pushed false claims about some of your rivals, from Nikki Haley to former President Barack Obama, saying that they were not born in the United States, which is not true. You have told 4 congresswomen of color who were American citizens to go back to where they came from. You have used words like animal and rabid to describe black district attorneys. You've attacked black journalists, calling them a loser, saying the questions that they ask are, quote, stupid and racist. You've had dinner with a white supremacist at your Mar-a-Lago resort. So my question, sir, now that you are asking black supporters to vote for you, why should black voters trust you after you have used language like that?
Well, first of all, I don't think I've ever been asked a question so in such a horrible manner. First question. You don't even say, hello, how are you? Are you with ABC? Because I think they're a fake news network, a terrible network.
Is it just me, or was there some similarities there? Did Angela Cry take her cue from that situation? Because it seems to me that they never drill anyone else in that manner unless you're not a Democrat. They don't have a problem speaking about people's issues or people's past associations or any of that stuff. Unless you're a Democrat, then it's as if none of that exists. But let's continue.
Watch your fucking mouth, yo.
I want to provide.
And I also
Can I respond,
One second.
please?
And Kamala Harris supporter.
May I respond?
Y'all bring it
May I
back.
respond?
Go ahead, Angela. Go ahead.
But I would like to respond.
Yeah.
This is the framing of the empire and the oligarchy and white supremacy and colonialism, which wants you to feel that resistance is futile. This is about voter blaming and voter shaming.
Let me just
Let me respond. You have plenty of time
No.
to.
What you're not going to say is that I'm ever parroting anything at the hands of white supremacy.
So this is when the sister girl routine jumps in, the neck snapping, and the whole emotional issue. I was going to say something else, but we'll say issue. Where she can't control herself to get through the interview. Really, the question that was asked in bad faith. And so because you asked a question in bad faith and you got a response that you didn't like because you feel like you were basically put on blast for mimicking and parroting white supremacist talking points, which you are. Now you want to turn this into it's a personal attack against you. But that's not the case. A hit dog a holler. Let's continue.
This is something that's very different. This is me asking you again. It's a binary
I'm
choice
just
in an
pointing
election.
out that these
it is
are
either
the
a
talking
win
points.
or a lie. No, it's
These
not
are
a
the
talking
same
point.
talking points
no,
that the
I didn't get my
DNC
talking.
uses.
This is not DNC talking points. This is my research, and sadly for you, the research says you have never won an election. You have been successful in pushing forward certain agendas as an advocate, but you have never won an election as a candidate.
We are the one
is that a
party.
winning strategy?
So, in order to win, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step, and in this case, it's many steps. Let me point out.
5, 6.
Notice how this woman will not shut her mouth and allow this woman to finish her answer. She's literally trying to be this petty little thing in the corner who's calling out whatever she feels she's calling out. It's been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times. So what? Joe Biden ran for president, 3 times and lost all 3 nominations before he won that last time? But y'all didn't want to bring that up when we was bringing that up about Joe Biden. Nah, y'all wanted to move far away from that. But this is the point. This is what I'm saying. She's there to literally just be a mouthpiece for the Democrats, for Kamala Harris. Let's continue.
Bring it back, y'all. Bring it back.
Respond.
Go ahead, Angela. Go ahead.
But I would like to respond.
Yeah.
This is the framing of the empire and the oligarchy and white supremacy and colonialism, which wants you to feel that resistance is futile. This is about voter blaming and voter shaming.
Let me just no. What you're not going to say is that I'm ever parroting anything at the hands of white supremacy. This is something that's very different. This is me asking you again. It's a binary choice in an election.
I'm just pointing out that these are the talking points.
No,
these are the same talking points that the DNC
I didn't get my talking.
uses.
This is not DNC talking points. This is my research, and sadly for you, the research says you have never won an election. You have been successful in pushing forward certain agendas. As an advocate, but you have never won an election as a candidate.
We are the one
is that a
party.
winning strategy?
So, in order to win, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step, and in this case, it's many steps. Let me point out. Let me point out, please. You need to compare the Green Party not with those who are taking money from AIPAC and the War Machine and Wall Street. You've got to compare us. Excuse me. You have to compare us to other grassroots, non-corporate.
She told me I'm a white supremacist. Okay.
You see how this woman is making it about herself. She's making it a personal situation. Whether or not she actually said, hey, you are a white supremacist, that's not even the issue. See, the problem is she hit too hard or too close to home. And Angela don't know how to take it because she has been pushing white supremacist narratives. See, they like to act like the white supremacist narratives only come from the Republicans, and we know that to be false. She's running around pushing any talking point the DNC tells her to push. So that hit her close to home. And another thing that Jill just made a point, she made a great point. She says, we're not taking money from AIPAC or any of these other big money companies or whatever, big money firms. Well, that's a great point because while Angela Cry is sitting here trying her hardest to tie this woman to Russian influence and all this other stuff, she speaks nothing about the Israeli influence in American politics. Isn't that a threat to democracy when you have a whole different country putting money behind different candidates in another country in order to sway the election outcome, I would think that that's the exact same thing that you're trying to accuse her of. But the Democratic Party has been participating in that for decades. And that's never brought up. But y'all want to talk about election interference. Let's continue.
White supremacist.
She said I was parroting the
said
talking
that.
points of a white supremacist.
See, that was my
She did.
disappointment.
May I finish,
earlier.
please?
I feel like
May I get to my point? May I please
We're actually
get
going
to
to let
my
Dr. Stein and
point?
Angela Rye close it up.
Let
Yes,
me
please.
finish, please. Thank you. You're trying to compare us to the Democratic Party and the Republican Party with their billions of dollars, or to the Working Families Party, which is not under attack. As a people-powered party, not taking money from Wall Street or the war machine or AIPAC, we are on very different turf. But if you compare us to all other similar parties, which are not taking corporate money, which are not bought and paid for, which can stand up against endless war, against homelessness, against the climate crisis, against the housing and the healthcare crisis. Campaigns like us, who can actually stand up for the people, they last exactly 1 to 2 election cycles, and then they're gone. So we are actually the pillar of strength among people-powered politics. And what have we done over that period? We have established the Green Party as the vehicle for people-powered politics. We have...
Y'all see the look on Angela Rye's face. She cannot look. That is not the look of a non-biased journalist. You're there to do a job. And that look on her face is showing that she is not there to do a job. She don't like that. Basically, she got read, basically. There's nothing else to say. You can't say it's not true because you are. You are a parrot. You mimic all the DNC talking points. And we know the DNC is anti-black. They just try to hide it behind a smile. So now she got her arms all crossed. That body language is a mug.
Trying to compare us to the Democratic Party and the Republican Party with their billions of dollars, or to the Working Families Party, which is not under attack. As a people-powered party, not taking money from Wall Street or the war machine or AIPAC, we are on very different turf. But if you compare us to all other similar parties, which are not taking corporate money, which are not bought and paid for, which can stand up against endless war, against homelessness, against the climate crisis, against the housing and the healthcare crisis. Campaigns like us, who can actually stand up for the people, they last exactly 1 to 2 election cycles, and then they're gone. So we are actually the pillar of strength among people-powered politics. And what have we done over that period? We have established the Green Party as the vehicle for people-powered politics. We have also launched the agenda, which has been adopted by the progressive Democrats, given lip service, not actually advanced. But whether you're looking at healthcare as a human right, launched by Ralph Nader as a national issue, reparations, launched by our campaign as a national issue in 2012. If you look at free public higher education, bailing out students and ending student debt. You had Congress bailing out the crooks on Wall Street who crashed the economy, but not bailing out homeowners, not bailing out students. That agenda was launched by us. So I think it's not fair, and it is the talking point of AOC the other day, who is taking her marching orders from the DNC. This is exactly what they say, that we are only running for president.
Of color as parroting talking points instead of us looking at basic math.
See how she tried to take it into the race situation? We're speaking about a political economic situation. And when she say that y'all are mimicking these talking points of the white supremacists in the DNC. That's exactly what you guys are doing. And she had to take it too. It's amazing that you say that it's two women of color parroting the talking points of white supremacists. Are you not? Because your damn show ain't parroting the talking points of the black grassroots. Interesting.
Matt, the one thing that AOC has done that you haven't is win some elections. And so when I'm asking you
Well,
if
what
you've
I'm
won
trying
any
to say-
elections, that is one point. If you want to tell me that
Let's
you want
talk
to push
about-
a more
good
progressive
question.
agenda,
Good
if
question.
you
Let's
want to talk about pushing a
1,500
progressive agenda,
elections.
you can do that, not by running necessarily for
As
president. Your
Frederick
track
Douglass
record
said,
as a state
power
rep candidate,
concedes
as a
nothing.
secretary of the Commonwealth candidate, as a gubernatorial candidate, as a presidential
I hear
candidate are
this.
woefully lacking.
I hear.
So now she's trying to tell her you can do good things without running for the president of the United States. Now, when have you ever heard a presidential candidate get interviewed and the interviewer not only gets into an outright pissing show with her, arguing her down, but then moves on to tell that candidate that they shouldn't be running for president? They can do good somewhere else, but their presidential run, they should end it. Like, none of these people are speaking to this person, Dr. Jill Stein, like she's a candidate at all. The same way they don't speak to Dr. Cornel West like he's a candidate at all. The same way they don't speak to Trump like he's a candidate at all and a former president of the United States. As journalists, I mean, because you're supposed to be non-biased. You're supposed to be there to get the information for the good of the people. But you're set off so quickly. So quickly. I wonder why. A hit dog, a holla.
I'm
This,
asking if you consider going about it
as
a
the
different way
blaming-
instead of telling me I'm parroting white supremacist talking points.
So I can
Perhaps
tell you-
you'd hear the facts.
I
These
can
are
tell
the
you-
facts. The numbers are not on your side, right?
So Dr. Jill Stein, let's
Oh,
end with some closing
absolutely.
remarks.
Yes.
On your campaign, and then the Honorable Angela Rye, you can end with your
I'm
closing
done.
remarks.
I've
okay.
asked my
Let's-
question.
Okay, so
And if you could see how Charlemagne just tried to do that as if this was a debate and this was supposed to be an interview. Jill Stein will let you get your closing remarks, and then the Honorable Angela Cry will let you get your closing remarks. Why would she need closing remarks? This isn't an interview for her. And it wasn't supposed to be a debate. Now, see, it's okay to hold a candidate's foot to the fire when you're interviewing them, but in a manner and such she just did, totally unprofessional. And that doesn't represent the black grassroots. That lack of emotional intelligence does not represent us. But they tried to make this literally a debate situation, an interrogation. And they were going to give this girl the last word. I'm glad she elected to shut her mouth. Let's see for how long.
As Frederick Douglass said, power concedes nothing. Without a demand, it never has and it never will. Like so many other Greens, I came from the world of social activism. I spent decades upon decades fighting for healthcare as a human right, for racially just redistricting, which we actually succeeded in, for getting big money out of politics and creating a public financing system, which we actually succeeded in Massachusetts until the Democratic legislature came in and invalidated the people's referendum, which had won by a 2-to-1 margin. They invalidated it on a voice vote and refused to provide the funding for it. I saw our movements being beaten back by the power, the political power of corporations and billionaires operating through the Democratic and Republican parties. I saw that over and over again. We are not making incremental progress forward. We're actually taking rather major steps backwards right now. You know, the disparities, racial disparities, black and white disparities are actually not better at all than they were in 1960, in spite of all the hard work and the lip service that's been given to racial justice and racial equality. In Boston, in the Massachusetts area, the average household wealth of the African American family is $8, considering debt. The average wealth of the Caucasian family is $250,000. And this is not unusual. This is where we are. We are stuck. If you looked at the footage from the floor of the DNC, what you could see were the corporate suites, which started at $500,000 each and went up to $5 million. This is the money running the DNC, running the Republican National Committee as well. These parties have been bought and paid for. They really do not have wiggle room. We're not going to fix this around the margins. We need to stand up and build a coalition. This was my experience as an organizer, a successful organizer on these many issues that I just ran through. How did we do that? You do it by building coalitions. But if your coalitions are only there for the moment, you can get the bill passed like we did with public funding of elections, but they're going to tear it down. Then you need your coalition to remain in power and to remain effective so that you're fighting to maintain your victories. So what I see us having done since I first was tricked into running for office in 2000, running for governor, I was tricked into running for office because I saw we were failing over and over and over again on our aspirations for racial justice, to fight white supremacy, to fight police violence, which also is getting worse year by year, to fight for health care. The health disparities between African American and white population is about 3 years. 3 years of life taken away from African Americans, and that's before you add in the disparities in education. If you factor in education disparities as well, that 3 years grows to 10 years, a decade taken off the lives of most African Americans. To me, this was just unacceptable. I could not sit there and take it over and over again, especially after the Democrats reversed our achievements to get at the core problem, which is the corruption of money in politics. We solved that, and they basically tore that solution to shreds. I could not stand there. That's when I got recruited to run for office, because I began to realize this is about building coalitions. That doesn't happen overnight. It takes a lot of education. It takes a lot of work. And so I ran in that first race for governor, challenging actually Mitt Romney, who was running for governor on the Republican ticket. And you know what? We had to fight our way to get into a televised debate, but we did succeed because the turnout was huge in the rallies that were demanding to open up the debates. And that debate was opened up.
All right, family, we're going to jump to the next situation here because I wanted to see if she was going to jump out of that quiet mode she was so upset about. She got her lips pierced today. Well, not today, but you know what I mean, after she got her little say-so off. But let's move along here because I want to show you what it looks like when Angela want to actually have an interview with you, because she had an interview with Kamala Harris 2020. Now check out the mannerisms and everything else, because none of it's the same. The questions aren't really the same. There's no hardball questions whatsoever. Whatsoever. She don't come off talking about, now Kamala, let's talk about your career as a prosecutor, and how you was locking up black mothers and keeping people locked up for cheap slave labor, having your inmates fighting wildfires. Let's talk about you taking Nina Simone's estate away from her daughter and granddaughter, and gave it to a YT person. Let's talk about those things. She didn't come off doing none of that. She came off with niceness and the sweetness and the let's play a game. Let's get into it, family.
Yeah, it will. And with that, I want to start because I know that part of what's happening in debate prep is they got to get you with rapid round. So one of my favorite things to do for the podcast is a rapid round. Part of that is to just loosen us up and get ready to just dive right in. We want to consider this family talk. So here we go. Let's start.
Okay.
So you are a proud AKA. How do y'all normally greet each other?
With a hug. Not during COVID.
Okay, what do you guys say? What's the little thing you say?
Greetings, soror.
Thank you. I was looking for a ski week, but I'll take it.
You know, when you go through the process.
Does that seem like the same Tiffany Cross that was just interviewing or supposedly interviewing Jill Stein? Jill Stein didn't get these teeth. She asked Kamala a question. Kamala didn't even have the answer. Kamala is supposed to be a proud soror. She didn't even know to say ski wee. Tiffany had to tell her. But this is definitely not the same interview process that she's using with Jill Stein now, is it?
Process of becoming one that we can have that conversation.
Not happening. I am black and not Greek. I'm an Eddie Raj child. Okay, next one. Did you know that you and Snoop Dogg share a birthday?
I did. Oh. I actually did.
Oh.
And I talked to him recently.
Did you know that you and Snoop Dogg shared a birthday? I mean, like, do you see the difference in the whole interview style that she's coming with? The whole energy and the whole demeanor and everything is totally different.
About voting, actually. Yeah.
I love it. I love
about
it.
vote, all of us voting. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really important right now.
Yeah.
Okay, your favorite professor at Howard?
Oh, Dr. Houchkins. There were so many, but I'll start with him. He was one of the ones who had been a real barrier breaker in his own career in life. And but there's so many, and the thing about the professors at Howard is that they were the best and the brightest in their field. They could have taught anywhere that they wanted to teach, but they chose to teach us, and in that way really inspired us in ways that were very special and long lasting.
Well, now that Howard has their commercial from this too, this little plug, we're gonna keep going rapid round. Okay, who threw the best?
But let me, in fairness, all HBCUs That is, but no, truly, that is an HBCU experience, and it's universal in that way. Mm-hmm.
Okay, who threw the best shade during the Democratic primary debates? You got to pick one.
DC family? DC? This is the type of questions. These are the kinds of questions that Tiffany Cross was asking Kamala when she was running for president. Not a tough ball question in sight. So you think people has been handling her with kid gloves as of recently? This has been going on for some time now.
Beside myself.
Okay. No, you can say yourself. Okay, what's the first thing you do in the morning?
Oh, a combination of things. But probably a read is one of the first things I do. Mm-hmm.
Favorite thing to cook? The people don't know you can slay down in the kitchen.
Yes, I can. A roast chicken. It's kind of my go-to.
Okay. And then best.
Now notice, family, that probably was a helpful question, whether Angela Cry knew it or not, but favorite thing to cook, best thing to cook, or whatever. I didn't hear Kamala say no greens the way she's been running around talking. She ain't telling that green story 4 years ago. She ain't talking about how people always come to her to get greens and she gotta make big pots and she gotta wash the greens in the tub. You ain't hear any of that 4 years ago. Interesting, isn't it? Oh, have time changes all. Let's continue.
Rapper alive?
Tupac.
He's not. You said he lives on.
But not a lot. I know. I keep doing that.
You said, listen, West Coast girls think Tupac lives on. I'm with you. So Tupac, keep going.
I keep.
These are the questions that Angela Rye are giving to Harris. I'm not even gonna play the rest of this. Let's move on, because fast forward to 2024, Kamala Harris is still getting tossed softball questions, but now she done went to the NABJ, the same disgraceful place that Trump went, and that disgraceful woman, Rachel whatever, basically blew her whole career as a journalist, in my eyes. However, let's get here. We have Kamala Harris here in Philadelphia. And like I said, no one grills her the way they grilled Trump. No one grills her the way that Angela Rye just grilled Jill Stein. But there are three key parts that I kind of want to concentrate on. It'll be real quick. Let's get into it.
Good afternoon, everyone. Madam Vice President, thank you so much for doing this and making the time.
Of course.
Just a little bit busy right now. We want to start on an issue that Americans across the country say is their number one concern, and that's the economy. A question that has been asked of you and everybody that's on the Democratic side is whether or not voters are better off now than they were 4 years ago. Are they better off now than they were 4 years ago?
So when we came into, well, first of all, let me just say, it is good to be with the National Association of Black Journalists, and I thank you for the work you do and that your members do every day. It is very important that we ensure that this organization and your members always have the resources and the platforms to deliver the voices that must be heard. So I thank you for hosting me today.
Translation, family. Remember what side your bread is buttered on. It's very important to make sure that you guys have the resources to keep the voices. Come on. Just not voices like Trump. Right? Just your voice. And this isn't a defense of Trump. If you're supposed to be black journalists, you're supposed to represent the black community. You're supposed to represent black interests. So you should be treating these presidential candidates the very same. And you should be asking these questions, you should be asking these candidates the questions that pertain to the community that's going to help build the community. There should not be a disdain in the job that you're doing because you have to interview someone that you don't like per se. You should be able to say, well, for the betterment of my people, I'm going to do this interview and I'm going to conduct this interview with style and grace. And like I said, nobody came at her in the same way that they came at Trump. Or the way that Angela Rye just went at Jill Stein. And she has policies that literally was put together that hurt the black community in California. But when it comes to that, oh, people's memories are real short, ain't they? Or it just doesn't matter.
Four years ago, when we came in during the worst unemployment since the Great Depression. We came in during the worst public health epidemic in centuries. We came in after the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. And a lot of it due in large part to the mismanagement by the former president as it relates to COVID and obviously January 6th. And we had then a lot of work to do to clean up a mess. As of today, we have created over 16 million new jobs, over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs. We have the lowest black unemployment rate in generations.
Misinformation, disinformation, ladies and gentlemen. Misinformation, disinformation. We've already did the broadcast on that, debunking the whole lowest unemployment rate and all that other stuff. And I just want to move on because there's other things that I want to touch on because she's just going to sit here and lie. But I did want to play that first part because, like I said, before she even got started, she basically gave the dog whistle to make sure they understood, hey, we're the ones that give you guys the funding for you guys to be able to do these kind of things. But let's move forward. She's actually asked a couple of good questions, but she ain't able to answer them the way she needs to. Let's talk about the black community as a whole. when we speak about reparations, we know what's necessary. When they bring up reparations and she doesn't answer, we know that you're not going to be the person that's going to implement what's necessary. But in this question here, she's asked about black men, and she gives the almost identical answer when she's asked about reparations. And it's funny because after what just happened in California, you would think that she would want that notch on her belt to speak to the issues of foundational Black Americans and the need for reparations. But let's get into how black men are now a topic when it comes to the DNC. We're now an important base when it comes to voters. According to Kamala now. Let's check into it.
And extending the child tax credit.
Madam Vice President, black men, as you know, are a closely watched voting bloc. You've hosted black men at your residence.
Yep.
You have engaged black men and centered them in your economic opportunity tour. But polling shows that some black men, particularly young black men, are considering voting for Donald Trump, and they see him as better for the economy. What is your message to young black male voters who feel left out of this economy, and how can your economic policies materially change their lives?
So I appreciate the spirit of the question, but I'll tell you, I've often been asked this question in a way that I've had to respond by first saying that I think it's very important to not operate from the assumption that black men are in anybody's pocket. Black men are like any other voting group. You gotta earn their vote.
Oh, snaps. Oh, snaps. Yes, Kamala, you must earn our vote. But it's not just black men. Notice how they tried to segregate the black men vote from the black female vote. The black male vote is now as important as the black woman's vote because, you know, they've been saying for a while that black women are the backbone, the lifeblood of the Democratic Party. But now they're trying to say, hey, yeah, but we recognize that black men are a very important voting bloc as well. See, this is a trick game language that they play. They segregate the black male from the black woman, try to make it seem like we're two totally different groups of people who just have to be wooed in two different ways. No. When we're speaking about black men, we're speaking about black women. When we're speaking about black women, we're speaking about black children. But they don't want people on code. But they're seeing people on code. They're seeing more and more that black women ain't messing with Kamala either. And all that finger wagging and disrespecting black men, claiming that we're disrespecting the black woman. We just don't want black women to be in leadership type crap. None of that's working either. So now they got to come out and say flat out exactly what it is.
So I'm working to earn the vote, not assuming I'm going to have it because I am black, but because the policies and the perspectives I have.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know if that was a first for you, but that was definitely a first for me. Kamala actually stating out of her own mouth, not the Democratic shills. Kamala stating out her own mouth that she's black.
Group. You got to earn their vote. So I'm working to earn the vote, not assuming I'm going to have it because I am black. To earn the vote, not assuming I'm going to have it because I am black. The vote, not assuming I'm going to have it because I am black. Vote, not assuming I'm going to have it because I am black.
There was a large pause in between that I am and black. There was a long pause. She didn't even say I'm black in a way that I feel is black. And I know, we speak in a multitude of dialect. But the fact that she said, because I am black, with that pause like that, that just seems iffy. Most people I know would just say I'm black because I'm black. I don't expect anybody to want me to give me their votes because I'm black. But let's continue. Maybe it's just me. I don't know. But let's continue.
But because the policies and the perspectives I have understands what we must do to recognize the needs of all communities. And I intend to be a president for all people. Specifically as it relates to what we need to do, to your point around economic opportunity. Yes, I started way before I was at the top of the ticket.
This whole economic opportunity stuff, it just rising tide lifts all boats crap. We're speaking about black men and she's teetering over and talking about I'm gonna be a president for everybody. Who said that? If I could have sworn it was Obama who said he's not the president of black America, he's not the president of white America, he's a president of the United States of America. Then proceeded to do everything for everyone else, but nothing for the black Americans that put him into office. Oh, okay, yeah, I thought it was him. So you ain't gonna be able to get away with that old nonsense talking about I'm gonna be a president for all Americans. Because all that means is that you're gonna be ignoring black Americans. The same way y'all been doing for the past 4 years until it got to this point. Let's keep it funky.
What I called an economic opportunity tour, focused on black men. Understanding that, for example, we have so many entrepreneurs in the community who do not have access to capital, but they've got great ideas, an incredible work ethic, the ambition, the aspiration, the dream, but don't have the relationships necessarily. So my work has included, as vice president, getting billions more dollars into community banks, including working with the big banks to do that.
Translation, family. They're giving money to more white folk to give to other white folk to control how it's put into communities that has black folk. They don't want to give us the reparations. No. But they will put some money into some banks and say, hey, you got to give some of this to the community banks. And they go ahead and give that money to the community banks, but they give it to them without stipulation. None of that money is stipulated to any of those banks for them to have to go to black Americans, for black owned businesses or anything like that. But that's supposed to be, a good thing.
So that we can increase access to capital for our small businesses, for our startups. Part of my plan under my economic opportunity plan going forward is that right now, startup entrepreneurs, small businesses only get a tax deduction of $5,000. Nobody can start a small business with $5,000. So I'm expanding that to $50,000. Understanding, again, that when people have the opportunity to have the resources to get started, they're going to put the good ideas, they're going to put the hard work into it. And part of what I also know is that our young black men, our black men, just like any group of people, anybody, our small businesses are really the backbone of our economy overall. And when they do better economically, we all do better.
Well, I'm glad you said that. Because if that was the case, y'all would have gave us reparations a long time ago. You know that when you invest in black communities, everyone does better. Because we stimulate the economy because it's our economy. But you guys are so against giving us what's owed to us, but you have no problem giving it to a bunch of illegals whom we've watched you give it to for the last 4 years. But you want our vote. And you want to offer us a $50,000 tax credit, which is fine and dandy for some people, but for others, you can't get the funding to start it up. Now, the tax credit for $50,000, that's cool and all, but you still got to put the funding up front in order to get a business going. Now, credit on the back end, that's cool. But that still doesn't help the majority of black Americans. Let's continue.
Part of my work is about understanding what we need to do in dealing with, for example, the historic inequities that have faced the black community around home ownership, right? I don't have to go through the history with anybody here about what that has meant in terms of redlining, what that has meant in terms of biases and home appraisals, and what the impact it has had on stemming the opportunity to build intergenerational wealth because of those obstacles. So part of the work that I have done and will continue to do is identify, speak truth about those obstacles, and address them. Another example is medical debt. 1 in 4 black families or individuals is more likely to carry medical debt than others. So part of my perspective, and as vice president, part of the work that we have done is to say that we're going to eliminate medical debt from being on your credit score. Because until now, medical debt worked against your credit score, and people know their credit score like, you weight, right? You know that number. And the difference between what that number is and what it needs to be is the difference between you being able to get a car loan, a small business loan, or even a lease on an apartment. And so part of my approach is understanding the obstacles that traditionally and currently exist to allow anyone, including Black men, be able to achieve economic wealth. And
notice that she said to allow anyone, including Black men, and the question in itself was about Black men. So once again, it goes back to everyone. And that's why the reparations question gets to run around as well. Because here's the thing. Everything that she just mentioned can be remedied with reparations. But we already know that the Democratic Party does not actively support reparations. So when she gets asked the question about reparations directly, she tapped her dance her way around it.
Yeah.
I want to switch gears to racial justice, Madam Vice President. Last month, you eulogized Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee.
Yeah.
Jackson Lee's signature bill, one of a few, was H.R. 40, which would create a commission to study the history of U.S. slavery and study the issue of reparations. She introduced H.R. 40 every session of Congress, taking up the mantle from Congressman John Conyers. This is a bill that you have co-sponsored as a U.S. Senator. Yet, this has, despite the fact that this has been, similar commissions have been created on the state level and on the local level, is yet to pass in Congress, let alone come out of committee. Congresswoman Jackson Lee, Congresswoman Barbara Lee, and other advocates have called for President Biden to take executive action to create this commission. Would you, as president, take executive action to create this commission, or do you believe that it should happen in Congress?
Well, first of all, as you mentioned, Sheila Jackson Lee, she was an extraordinary leader who we just recently lost, and she was a friend and a real champion for so many issues. So I feel compelled to say that about her. On the issue of what we need to do going forward, look, first of all, we just need to speak truth about history, in spite of the fact that some people would try and erase history and try and teach our children otherwise. We need to speak truth about the generational impact of our history in terms of the generational impact of slavery, the generational impact of redlining, of Jim Crow law. I could go on and on and on. These are facts that have had impact. And we need to speak truth about it. And we need to speak truth about it in a way that is about deriving solutions. And frankly, I think that we, and part of that is studying it to figure out exactly what we need to do. But part of what we can do right now is, for example, what I'm talking about in terms of building an opportunity economy.
No, Kamala. What we could do right now is pay the reparations. Y'all been running around here giving billions of dollars to a bunch of people who aren't even citizens. For whatever reason, y'all been giving billions of dollars to Israel for a war that we're not even a part of. Billions of dollars to the Ukraine for a war we're not even a part of. Gave $500 million to Afghani refugees. So when I'm hearing one of the things that we can do right now when speaking about reparations for Black Americans is opportunity. I forget what she even said. Opportunity. Hold up.
What we can do right now is, for example, what I'm talking about in terms of building an opportunity economy.
Opportunity economy. This nonsense, I don't know. Is that supposed to be another, like, opportunity zones? And this is what she's pushing to people as if it's actually an economic plan for Black Americans. When she's asked about reparations, a debt that's owed to Black Americans. She wants to speak about an opportunity economy. Let's continue, family.
Which is addressing explicitly the obstacles that historically and currently exist and dealing with them. Student loan debt, medical debt, bias in home appraisals. What we need to do in terms of dealing with an issue that I have championed for years, Black maternal mortality.
All things that you guys had 4 years to address. And every time they keep bringing up opportunity, notice they're always talking about debt first. Student loan debt, medical debt, debt. Well, if you give us our reparations, we can fix whatever debt we have. We're only in debt because we don't have the funding in order to pay our way out of the debt. But if you were really serious about doing those things would have gotten done already because you've been in office for 4 years. Maybe I'm just the person who lost his mind for expecting a party that's been in office for that amount of time to actually do the things that they've trying to pitch to me now. They should have already been done. If y'all already knew the issues, y'all knew the problem. But it's not about getting it done. It's not about getting it done at all. What it's about is just giving lip service to it so that they can get into office. And when they get into office, they just say, you know what, forget it. Send it to Congress. She even admittedly says it. It should be done through Congress. Let's get there.
Which is the fact that Black women are 3 to 4 times more likely to die in connection with childbirth than other women. And we know that the reasons for that include disparities that pre-exist her pregnancy, including disparities that exist in the system during her pregnancy. So all of those things must be addressed.
But do you have a position on whether that should happen, this commission should happen through executive order or via Congress?
I think Congress ultimately will have the ability to do this work. I'm not discounting the importance of any executive action, but ultimately Congress. Because if you're going to talk about it in any substantial way, there will be hearings, there will be a level of public education and dialogue.
Translation, there'll be a bunch of buffers. They got to have buffers in place. Because we don't need to go back to the talking stages. California reparations literally just proved that, well, excuse me, let me rephrase that. California, the panel who put together the recommendations for the California reparations, have already done the study. You guys can follow the motto: lineage-based reparations, to the descendants of American slaves, using cash payments and other beneficial programs that will benefit the community. If you need a template, I got a whole reparations bill in the description down below. Click the description, go to the change.org link and read the reparations bill. But that's not the intent. She already said, ultimately, I think Congress has what it takes. Because she don't want nothing to do with that. Because she's not just going to do anything that's only going to benefit black people. No.
That, and I think that was part of the spirit behind the congressional action thus far, to ensure that everyone can participate in this conversation in a way that elevates knowledge about history and the reference points that that are the impetus of this conversation. Especially, again, when people are trying to deny history, when people are, so-called leaders are saying that enslaved people benefited from slavery. I mean, let's talk about the delta here in terms of the work that needs to be done. It's profound.
Madam Vice President, I want to move to Springfield, Ohio.
So let's talk about the work that needs to be done. It's profound. No. The work that needs to be done is very easy, simple and plain. The problem is we've had so many of you guys working against our interests for so long that it's not getting done. But now Black Americans are waking up. We're calling people out. We're putting our foots on people's necks about our reparations and what is owed to our people. Y'all didn't need all that red tape to give any of those illegals any of the funding that y'all just gave, including that $380 million that y'all just gave to communities that would accept these illegal immigrants. Wondering why, when things are happening and people are talking to the officials in the town trying to figure out, are these things really happening? And the people are showing that these things are happening because they got it on videotape. But then the official turned around and say, these things aren't happening. We don't have any reports of this. It's because they're being paid federally. Then they try to act as if it's misinformation when you can see with your own eyes what is going on all across America with these illegal immigrants and the crime that's been brought to our doorstep. But they would want you to throw all that away, run to the polls, and give Kamala Harris your vote. It's a no for me, dog. It's a hell no for me, dog. And here's another thing. Because they have no problem with speaking in circles when it comes to reparations. They have no problem talking as if, well, it's always the Republicans who keep blocking us. California reparations, that whole situation, it was basically proof. It was evident that these same people who claim to be representatives are the same people who are working against our interests. And so it came out that Gavin Newsom was behind the derailment of the reparations bills in California getting to the floor and being voted on. So, for all the people who was saying, well, he didn't know anything. Nope. He knew about it. I want to get down here to show what it was here. Why did a bill to create a state reparations agency the centerpiece of California's initial attempt to introduce legislation to repair harm endured by Black Californians fail? SB 1403 would have formed the California American Freedmen's Affairs Agency. Freedmen's Affairs Agency. Not the Black Affairs Agency. Not the Black and Brown Affairs Agency. The Freedmen Affairs Agency. To administer reparations programs, the bill faced little opposition from lawmakers as it moved through the committee early in the session. But last-minute pressure from Governor Gavin Newsom's staff to change SB 1403 divided Black lawmakers and stalled the bill. Instead of creating the agency, the amendments proposed earmarking $6 million for the California State University system to lead a study of reparations. Didn't we just literally do a study that came to the conclusion that California owed cash payments to the citizens that are the descendants of American freedmen in California? So, like we said, he was trying to throw that right back into another study. Like Kamala Harris just said, she wanted to do study so that there can be the talking and the learning and all the red tape. Gavin Newsom wanted it to go back into red tape mode. So, don't tell us nothing. Democrats, don't tell us nothing. Keep your mouth closed, especially when Gavin Newsom going around signing laws specifically for Jewish Americans in California. California governor signs law to help Holocaust survivors recover art stolen by the Nazis. Don't tell us nothing. You can't tell us nothing, because while he's doing that, the California legislator, the Black Caucus members, they're going around on a listening tour. State of Black California. Black caucus members weigh next steps for reparations in California. This is what's going on. They're calling it the listening session tour. So they want to take it all the way back to just talking about reparations. No. We shouldn't actually act on these bills. No, let's go back to the talking stages. The 3-hour event was held by the Secretary of State office building, 1 block south of the state capitol. Amidst interruptions and disruptions from the attendees during the event, Bonta says she appreciated the feedback. It wasn't about her just getting feedback, family. It's supposed to be a way to let you guys vent without doing anything about it, because if they really cared, they didn't need the feedback. They knew what we wanted. They knew what we demanded. They knew what we was telling them what to do right there in their face during the time of the session, and they literally refused. They literally refused. I got what I expected. I got out of it what I expected. Excuse me. We have a lot of diverse thoughts and opinions on how to proceed. No, there was only one way to proceed, and that was to put it to the floor for a vote, pass the bill, and force Gavin Newsom to sign that bill. But no, that's not what happened. Bonta told California Black Media, I don't know what the hell that is. I've never heard of California Black Media. But here they go, legitimizing a bunch of people you'd never heard of. It was helpful to hear directly from people without the... Are you serious? Hear directly from the people without the constraints of hearing rooms and formalities. You literally heard all these people at the assembly telling you to bring up the bill. So all you did was say, oh, we have no problems hearing you guys, but we're not going to actually do nothing for you guys. Family, this is what we're dealing with, and this is where we're at. Anybody who's actually talking about doing something for us, they're being met with hostile interviewers, emotionally unintelligent people who don't care about the interests of Black Americans. And then the people that want to do absolutely nothing for us, they're doing puff pieces on. The people who actually want to do absolutely nothing for us is running around here talking about, well, we're here to listen. Just not when you tell us to pass that bill. Just not when you tell us to pass that bill. Family, don't let anybody tell you that the Democratic Party has your best interests at heart. Because they're going out of their way to make sure that what's necessary for our community will never be addressed. is never, will never be addressed. Just know that we're here to listen, though. We're here to educate people. But we're not here to do anything for you. And with that being said, family and friends, if you're not subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button along with the notification bell so you can be notified whenever videos like this drop. Please make sure you're hitting the like and share button so we can beat up the algorithm. Make sure we get this message out to the ears that need to hear. And if you have not done so yet, please hit that link in the description. Go to change.org, read the petition for reparations, and put your signature on it. Because family, if we're not pushing our bills, if we're not doing these things, you're seeing these people aren't doing them. They're not pushing any bills for us. They're not bringing them up for a vote. They're not trying to speak about reparations. They're just trying to have the conversations, continuous conversations over and over and over and over again. But they never want to actually address it. But that's what we're here for. We're here to hold their feet to the fire. We're here to make sure that they know, oh, you will not be able to ignore us any further and think that you're going to be put in the White House due to our votes. No. You're going to feel every bit of these hands as I slap you up with these facts. And we're going to get all of you out of office. Because none of you represents us. And with that being said, family and friends, the doors of the church are now closed. Peace, family.
So you know how those lids are, because this is, well, I'm just going to speak, okay? So this is it. So you know how those lids on those Starbucks cups, they're white, right? And so if you wear lipstick, they get all over the lid. And so then I find myself in meetings if I'm the only woman, and that's kind of, and so I keep taking the lid off and having my cup out so that I don't have that big lipstick mark on the lid. So I said, can we do something about the color of the lid? So that was that conversation.